to be here, launching my new book, Gifts the Mole Gave Me. There are not very many moles in it, so if you buy it looking for moles, you will be disappointed. But this is my fourth collection now. This is my second full collection. I've got 2 pamphlets as well. And this one was a weird one to put together because I felt it was a bit unthemed, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but generally with a poetry collection you like it to have some recurring themes in it and to be something that works well together, to be cohesive. But I didn't feel like it did when I was writing it. But then once it was together, it did feel like something. It felt like a journey. And that's where the mole comes from. She's a metaphorical mole who digs under the ground and moves forward without realising it. So that's where the mole comes from. I'm going to stop waffling now. I'm going to read something from it. And because we are in my hometown where I was brought up, just outside Scarborough actually, and where I come from, and back here reading, I don't do very many readings in Scarborough, but I'm going to try and do a few more because I feel like I want to come home to it now. This is my hometown, and I want to write more about it, and I want to have that sense of identity that I feel like I've lost a little bit. So this is a poem called In Scarborough. I'm just going to read it, I won't explain it. In Scarborough there's a grey seal out at sea, a stack of dripping lobster pots, a whelk seller wearing a woolly hat, a nostalgia of postcards in a white rack. The view is inside out with cold. There is in memory of and who loved to sit here or came to Scarborough every year. There's a wind that whips grass on the headlands, hats are lost here. In Scarborough, the word is funicular. There's a fuss and fluster as the season starts. We've been huddled as gulls while the north has been shut down. Now someone's fed the meter and we can all begin again. There's a curve to the Valley Bridge suicide rail, there to keep us safe from ourselves. We jump in Scarborough with the sea in our face. In Scarborough, there was a statue of Richard III, last king to reside in our seascaped castle. There's an empty cage where we thought we'd kept our history safe. There's a space where he was, but it's been scrubbed clean. I just wanted to say, because it's got the word funicular in it, and I made a big thing about funicular. And the funicular railway is the railway that goes up the cliff. And if you stand outside the funicular railway at any point during the summer season, you will just hear people saying, you know, it's called a funicular railway, this. As if it's like, it's a constant thing, it comes up in quizzes all the time. That's why the word is funicular in Scarborough. This one's called Dry Stone Walling and was written after a visit to West Yorkshire for another reading, where I was camping actually in my VW camper van and noticed that the dry stone walling around us was different to the ones that you get in North Yorkshire. And after I talked to someone, it became like the realisation that the dry stone walling is like a signature to the person that's made it, and I thought that was quite interesting. So this is called Dry Stone Walling. This lane is tapping its teeth in frustration, desperate to speak to me about gorse and sheep. It voices the stone walls into strata layers, as if an earthquake has ruffled them together. Sometimes they are sliding off the end, a cramped writing hand patted into place with all the knacks and ticks of language. I can see the sly sling of a too small rock behind the curve of a shoulder blade. I can see the lift and wedge and lift and wedge, the voices raised on either side, the Friday night pint, the church days, the wages wedged in an old tea tin. The valley darkens. Stories are left alongside the tools, sticking like cement between the gaps. This next one is about my mum and her sisters, who, my mum comes from quite a big family, she's got 7 sisters and 2 brothers. My dad comes from a big family as well. But my mum's sisters are all quite sort of small and bird-like, and they all have very high cheekbones, and they all just look so similar, it's unreal. They could be not twins because there's 7 of them. Oh, tuplets. No, that would be 8, wouldn't it? Anyway, they look very, very similar. So this is about my mum and her sisters, and it's called Starlings. When my mum returns to her kith and her kin, she becomes a starling on a wire. Gathered for flight with her sisters, tweezer beaks snip snip together, oil spilled backs meet and merge in speckled readiness. Yellow legs, no more than matchsticks, grasp at brandy and lemonade or gin and tonic, tiny hooks tapping on the smooth curve of glass. Then a sudden bloom into flight, a murmuration. They twist and plait together, stubs of wings frantic, lifting up above Thirst Town, the cobbled market square, the golden fleece, the picture house still echoing the sounds of stamping cowboy feet up, higher, the Hambleton Hills become an ordnance survey map, Sutton Bank, a rind or a lip, the white horse of Kilburn, a child's chalk drawing. They rise away from the roaring and gurning of hungry bairns, the baddens in queer streets, the bonny lassies, canny lads, me mam and her sisters, they are calling to her in short, sharp tweets, look, look, here's our Riley, now then, now then, now then. I should point out that's the only one that my mum likes out there.
It's got someone sneaking out then.
You've got to go, Wendy.
See you later. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome, sweetheart. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
You got rid of that?
The next one is called pluviophile. A pluviophile is someone who loves the rain, the smell of rain after it's rained. And this was written after I spent 2 years as a dog walker for a living. I did dog walking for a living, and it was fantastic at the time. It was fantastic, but after a while, God damn it, that rain, walking dogs in the rain, and dogs that don't want to walk. And you think that all dogs, I have dogs, I've always had dogs, my dog would walk and walk and walk. Some dogs just don't want to walk, they just don't want to walk. And you just stand there and it's raining, raining. This is actually not my own dog. I'm not bitter about dog walking. I enjoyed it for a while. I don't dog walk anymore. So this is pluviophile. When it comes, thick and soft as the pelt of an animal, I am grounded, brought down to calm in the smell of damp earth. We wait like wet starlings under tree cover, their song work undone in the shallow hiss of leaves and rain. I am paused, smelling the green of the grass, the hung heads of daffodils, watching the plough furrows fill with water. A dog barks somewhere on one of the farms, and the spaniel lifts his wet head, waits as I wait. We are communed, marooned, standing peacefully, watching the water make mud out of soil, movement out of stillness. And this is the title poem, which is a slightly odd little poem, and it originally came about because this is another dog walking story. I was walking the dog out around the fields around where I live in my village, and kept coming across these molehills, and the first one I came across had a fossilised, like an oyster shell, like a clam shell on it. It was made of chalk, it was fossilised but made of chalk, on the top of this molehill. I thought, oh, that's amazing, so I picked it up and took it home. And then the next time I walked him, I came across another molehill, and it had like a piece of pottery, like at the curve of a plate, and it was all like filigree gold around the edges. And it just sort of kept happening. Now every time I go out, I look for the molehills, because there's always something in there. And it made me think about the dark and the subterranean, and what the mole sees when it comes up, and how everyone's perspective is ever slightly different. The mole's perspective is slightly different. So this is gifts the mole gave me. My own face staring down, the arc of a horizon framing my head like a portrait. The world staggering backward behind me, the dog curved to a streak on the convex mole eye. The memory of sleep, the plush of a velvet heart, the scraping away, day after day, enough soil to glob a mouth shut, shut a world in, pick treasures out. The next one is one about a sheep. It's not really about a sheep, it's about my nana, except I changed the name because it's not really about my nana. I felt quite bad about saying it about my nana. She's dead now, so I feel bad speaking about her. She's dead. So this is, and then I changed it to something else. And this is how poetry evolves, mainly out of embarrassment. You change things, you change names. So this is Fallen Sheep. The nostrils warm a melt circle across her chin and hinged lid mouth, slack with a higgle of old headstones, her tongue a lazy slide of spit. The balsa-thin skull might yet be found still attached to a spine, as spring arrives with an archaeology of death, when all the white gives way to colour. Once I passed a nursing home while walking. I saw a woman laying this way, a cartouche of decay through an open door. She was half out of an easy chair, the woven armrest wet with spittle, her grunting breath, the teeth, her white nightdress hitched above one knee, the pale November light packed all around her. There came those smiling nurses dressed in blue and hoisted Lottie to her feet. She let them pull and push her until she was upright, stunned, feeling misplaced in a different light. This is a short one that I was commissioned to write as part of, because I write a column for an online magazine called Northern Soul, and every year they have a Christmas card and they send me a picture and I write a poem based on the picture. And this is quite a common scene, I think, in the north, in anywhere actually in the country, but it's called a Northern Snow Scene. All the kids are out today, and sometimes a dog chases his pack down the hill, and sometimes someone mams shouts from the ember of a doorway so that every head turns to see whose tea is ready, who's going for their bath, and who will dare stay out to the wide sky, leaning on the slope's top edge, toes the silhouettes of trees down to their shadows. I'm only going to read a couple more. We're out of time yet. So this one was actually written for Amy and Matt for their wedding, and it's slightly changed actually in the book. But this was a wedding poem that I agonised over for a long time. Well, not a long time actually, I didn't give myself enough time to write it. Typically left it to the last minute, and then it went through 3 different revisions, and then this one was the one that I wrote almost on the day. So this is Advice on Marriage for Amy and Matt. Let love be your guide rope. Let the lines on your palms be your map. Let the heat of a held hand be a homing beacon. The lightest fingertip touch on the hip or the waist. Let this be your life jacket. Let Groupon vouchers for afternoon tea be a currency in your own personal country. Let 10 minutes together at 6 a.m. be as precious as a lifetime's love. Don't be afraid to reopen old wounds. You are each other's blood brother now. When a storm comes, or a swell of worry, let the gold band on your finger be a life ring. Let your marriage be your raft. Be each other's shelter. No structure is stronger than 2 people in love. I'm going to read 2 more, and they're 2 running poems. I've just done the Great North Run recently, and it just about killed me. And I've lost toenails from it, my shoes were too small, it turned out, and it was, wow, God, that is a long way to run. That is a long way to run. Don't think it isn't, because it bloody is. And you run along a motorway, and it's weird, and people throw jelly beans at you, and but it's brilliant as well. It's brilliant, but it's weird and hard. And at the end, you just want to cry and never want to do it again, but I'm doing it again next year. So this is a poem that I wrote about running and why run. I don't really understand why, because I'm not a natural runner. I've not got the physique for it as a runner. I'm just not very good at it really, but I do it anyway. So this is, and the last one I'm going to read is another running poem. So this is called God's Song. Lose the trail of prayers that hang about the head like moths, and watch instead the tendon of road swerving through a cluster of trees. Birds will fall away, losing their song to your footfall, as you ignite the leaves as only you can, bleed into the heat beneath your feet. Swing to the rhythm, you are sudden and serene at once. Your heart is a fist, clenched, remembering what it is to survive, not just exist. And this I shall finish on the sweary poem. The sweary poem. So if you do not like the word fuck, close your ears. And this one is another running poem. And it was written after some mean boy shouted at me from a cab. And I was really upset at the time, but then I got really angry afterwards. So this one's called Fuck You. Yes, I'm fat with a crooked nose from an accident with a lamppost and a slightly lazy eye, and I look, or so I'm told, the spitting dab of my grandmother. I'm 37 and a bit. I am scarred, I am scared, I am falling down drunk on a Saturday night and too hungover to leave the house, but I run. You see me running, or jogging, or dragging my fat ass along, puce in my moon face, eyes watering, fist clenched, sweating under each swinging toot, gob gaping because I'm fat and I am running. Once upon a time, I wore skirts and bare legs and danced in clubs, and once upon a time I wore skin-tight jeans and looked so hot I set the house on fire. At 25, I could have passed for 16, and when that cute little drug habit kicked in, I was the skinniest I've ever been, and I remember that like a drunken dream. Not the stomaching knots and the fingers down my throat and the desperation to be thinner, but the loose hips, light-headed, high as a kite girl, with legs so long they hurt your eyes and auburn hair like Anne Boleyn. So yeah, I've done my time getting through and fighting on. Now I am grown up and have a house and have a man, and when the things I loved, the things I really loved, were gone, despite me being so fucking good, all those rearview mirror dreams, I fight on. This training, this getting fitter, this bringing myself back to something I half recognise, this is nothing, not to me. So go on, laugh it up, turn away, whatever. I don't give a fuck. Thank you.